let's beat rumination with meditation. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. The individual wrote, "I'm addicted to regret and rumination," which is a great hook. Hopefully they only mean this figuratively. Let's begin. They wrote, "I've been having intense ruminating thoughts about the one that got away. I regret that missed opportunity and constantly romanticize the life I would have had with the other person." These thoughts consume me day and night. I'm actually sleep deprived because of this. I just get so involved, fantasizing the wonderful life I would have had with that person. Thinking about how they are now happily married with someone else, and how I would like to do things different if I could go back in time. I can stay like this for hours until I finally realize what I'm doing. Start meditating and breathing exercises, but inevitably it starts again with ruminating thoughts. It's like an addiction. Well, I'm really glad that this person confirmed that the title was a metaphor by converting into a simile here. Because once we literally begin thinking of thoughts as addictions, it really muddies the waters. So this is good. This is good. So let's begin with broad brushstrokes, shall we? Allow me to state the obvious. Just as a character in Star Trek, the original series, would often say, "Damn it, Jim, and I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer." Well, I'm a Lama, not a neurologist. But in my own experience, in my own search to find a way of organizing all my superficially unrelated symptoms, one of the things that's come across my radar is this: that sometimes rumination can be one of many symptoms of neurodivergence. And it's really important in our enthusiasm not to get too attached to bro science. Let me find the right button here. Let me try button number 5. And let me scooch over to the right. If you go to this website, I don't make any money. This is a free service. It will help you track down therapists who not only specialize in neurodivergence, but who quite often are neurodivergents themselves. So I added this link to the description area below the video for your convenience. I'm a big believer that we should always find experts, people who not only have advanced degrees, but who've specialized in the area of your concern. You don't want a jack of all trades who is a master of none. You want to find someone who specializes in this, who thinks about this 40 hours a week at least. Now, just because this correlates doesn't mean doesn't mean you have neurodivergence, but it can be useful, because if you treat rumination as a facet of OCD and you treat that psychologically, or you treat that with what's that called? It used to be called rational emotive approach. They rebranded it. Now they call it CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not a fan of that. I feel it does more harm than good. This could be helpful. Now, in the interim, there are things we can do. In the interim, and what I'd like to do today is to adapt traditional Buddhist contemplations for your specific scenario. And so what that does, instead of fighting the energy, you get to harness the energy. It would be silly for an individual with a bit of fiberglass to try to tame the ocean. The ocean is so much bigger. But a person with a little bit of expertise and a hunk of fiberglass can surf the ocean. Similarly, it might not be your job to decide what you think on and how deeply you think on it, but it could be your job to notice it and to use techniques to make the most of it. So I have endured a shit ton of disabilities that have wreaked havoc in my life. And it's taking me, it's been a full-time job just to manage my disabilities. And there's always people, some dull-minded, some cruel, who will find fault in how hard I've had to work to manage those disabilities. And my takeaway is this, that life is like a card game. And we cannot choose the cards we're dealt. We cannot play someone else's hand. We can only play the hand in front of us. And if you play, and hopefully we'll play it well. That's the best we can do, is to use our strengths and our weaknesses, our abilities and disabilities in the most loving, beneficial, sustainable, wise, joyful, beautiful way we can. And so this morning I'd like to share with you 4 gentle, passive contemplations. And then I'd like to show you how to rest the mind in the autonomic nervous system in a deeply therapeutic way. And I don't know if if your family's ever owned a grandfather clock, or perhaps you've seen one on television or in the movies, but the pendulum is ponderous. It's slow. It's not going to win a land speed race. Similarly, we can swing back and forth between passive contemplations of love and wisdom and passive practices of mindfulness and meditation. And going back and forth can be a delicious way not to make rumination go away, but to find a way of benefiting from its energy. It's been said that those who are hardwired for rumination are going to always find something to ruminate on. So if subject A is not in the offering, it'll find subject B, and then it'll find subject C, and then it'll find subject D. It has been posited by some anthropologists that just as in the 90s, Hillary Clinton insisted that it takes a village to raise a child, an anthropologist might say it takes a collection of neurotypes to make of a species a success. And our species has several neurotypes, and that have been very beneficial for the species. There are some neurotypes that are just natural-born sentinels. There are some neurotypes that are natural-born leaders, that they thrive in times of peril. Not because of psychology, but because of neurology. There are some neurotypes that love the mundane. There's some neurotypes that love variety. There's some neurotypes that love consistency. There's some neurotypes that are meticulous. There are some neurotypes that can't be meticulous. They're profoundly creative. None of these is wrong. They're all useful for the species. Now, our genes are ruthless. Our genes do not select for attributes that are going to make us peaceful and happy. They select for attributes that will lead to reproductive opportunities for the individual and the sustainability of the species. That's it. And with every neurotype, there are pluses and minuses, pleasures and pains, strengths and weaknesses. And our job is not to select which neurotype we are. Our job is to figure out what neurotype we are and learn how to make the best of it. So please use that link in the description area below to find someone to determine if this is your scenario. I know in my own life I've done this. I found myself ruminating, and here's the one thing. I found myself ruminating about someone I met 30 years ago, and I innocently wanted to be their friend, but I realized that every time they came across my feed, it would trigger rumination, so I just unfriended them on social media, not out of spite or hate or anything like that, just for a desire for mental health. But because my neurotype is prone to rumination, I then found someone from not the 90s, or not from the late 80s, but from the early 80s to ruminate on. So it is as if my neurotype is prone to rumination. It's not a sign from the universe that I need to blow up my life and blow up that person's life and manipulate them. What's the word I'm looking for? Ensconce myself into their heart. No, it's just an attribute of the particular flavor of neurodivergence I have. I tell you this so that you understand you're not alone. And there are ways of dealing with this. And we don't have to rely on superstition, and we don't have to rely on self-loathing, and we do not need to indulge our controlling tendencies. We do not need to indulge our narcissistic tendencies where we use people like pawns. We can be a good person despite impulses that are not always constructive. We can still be a good person. We can still do the right thing. And we can learn the difference between being led by centered spontaneity, being led by scattered spontaneity, that so-called great idea you think you have after your third consecutive espresso in 30 minutes, or being led by contrivance. So we can learn to make distinctions and to surf the flow state in the most sustainable way, where we do the most good with our life and our talents and our passions and our strengths and our liabilities. I do look forward to sharing these very specific techniques with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. Please excuse me if I'm Captain Mucus. Sorry, the Mayor of Mucus. Gotta line up those alliterations. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Hinduism and Taoism and Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friend, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Excuse me while I play a tune on my nose. Alright, so let's explore. Let's play with let's first of all, let's see how this looks on the screen. Okay. Let's play with the latest iteration of Love and the Three Marks of Reality, which kind of sound like a Motown group from the early 60s, doesn't it? Or perhaps the flip side of Three Dog Night. Anyway, we're going to play with several laps. When I was a kid, sometimes I'd go running at the high school track for multiple laps. The first lap is going to be, we're going to organize today's practices in terms of the 4 bases of mindfulness. And so our first lap, we're going to contemplate the mental before resting in meditation. Then the second lap, the interpersonal, and then the physical, and then the circumstantial. That just seems to work out most sustainably. It's not the most logical way, but it turns out the most sustainable way. Because it's not enough to have a good idea. We have to test our ideas rigorously with experimentation in the laboratories of our bodies and minds, and the bodies and minds of others who play with these techniques. So let us begin by bringing the mental into the path of love and the 3 marks of existence. So we begin with Dukkha, and so I'm going to chant. Let's together as a team. Let's chant. Each of us has experienced the stress of not getting our mental needs met. How we want when we want for as long as we want, if at all. So we're going to take all these words and squish them down into 6 syllables, which we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. How could minds feel stressful? The key is to remember this is a rhetorical question. No, Virginia, it's not our job to answer this. What then is our job? To recite this silently, mentally, and passively in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. How could minds feel stressful? Now, if you're watching this and you're hearing my strange voice and you're seeing my frightening face and you're struggling with rumination, fabulous. Let's replace the noun minds with the pronoun this. How could this feel stressful? And there's tremendous power in recognizing the presence of stress. We don't have to lie to ourselves about what we feel. We don't have to justify or minimize or rationalize or fatalize what we feel. We don't have to go into story about what we feel. We don't have to repress what we feel. By recognizing the fly in the ointment, it can be helpful. It can be liberating. We are wired by evolution to move towards pleasure and away from pain. And while if this mechanism is a useful tool, but a terrible tyrant. One of the fringe benefits of the Buddha's path is keeping our survival tools without being dominated by our survival tools. This contemplation, this gentle, passive contemplation, can help To make things more interesting, I think it could be fun to count 4 rounds of this, pretending that a round is simply one inhalation followed by one exhalation. In Tibet, this is known as ironing, sharpening, iron. I'm sorry, iron, sharpening, iron. Don't know why I added an ing suffix. So, I like to play with Bengali crease counting. Maybe you will too. During the inhalation, I like to advance the tip of my left thumb and allow it to touch the various sets of creases upon my little finger and eventually its tip. Let's do this together as a team. If our awareness of stress drives us into fear and aggression, it's going to exacerbate the stress in our life. However, if our stress can help us look outward and see that others have the same stress, if we are able to apply our same aversion to our stress to others, we will find ourselves upon the path of compassion. Please chant with me. Since we are not alone in our frustrations, we could also long that others' mental needs also be met. So, basically, we're taking all these syllables and squishing them down into just 6 syllables, which we are dividing between our in-breath and our out-breath. No, Virginia. Our job is not to work magic. Our job is not to be Gandalf the Grey or Galadriel the Golden. Our job is not to actively concentrate or actively imagine or actively believe. Our job is simple, super simple. We just recite these words silently, mentally, and passively in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. Welcome to the lazy bastard path of enlightenment. Let's count the next 4 rounds upon our left ring finger. It sounds so simple, but just playing with these words in this sequence helps us to dance upon the neural pathways of our central nervous system in a distinctly therapeutic manner. Please chant with me. Observing the coming and going of mental phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. When we read the second to the final passage in the Satipatthana Sutta, one of the Buddha's 3 most popular meditation manuals, we learn that it's possible to master the Buddha's path in just a week. Therefore, we can conclude that one need not accomplish a Doctor of Divinity or a PhD, or if we prefer other foreign words, becoming a Thera or a Mahathera or a Geshe or a Kenpo or a Kenchen. One need not squander decades chasing academic accolades. We're already wired to notice change. Every adult has observed so many changes in the seasons. Oopsie. Changes in the cycle of the moon. Changes, sunrises, sunsets. In their own body, we've noticed changes. The swelling and the sinking of our rib cage with each breath. Change makes of grasping and clinging and absurdity. Change reminds us that letting go is an inevitability. Letting go is going to happen whether we want it or not. We can fight it or we can dance with it. So we can again play with the phrase, how could mind always change? And if you right now are struggling with rumination, you could replace the noun mind with the pronoun this. There's great power and vigor. In fact, Dr. Milton Erickson built his career on strategic vagaries. So let's play with this right now, and as we do, let us count our next 4 rounds upon our left middle finger. Please chant with me. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever mental phenomena we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less like our identity, as if it simply was not us. So there's no mystery here. Selflessness was never meant to be taken literally, but only figuratively. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever sense of self we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could feel less solid. That's it. That's the quote-unquote great mystery. The natural processes of our central nervous system are already wired for rapid enlightenment. So again, we play with a rhetorical question. Most of us could play with, how could mind not be me? For those of us in the throes of rumination, we could work with, how could this not be me? There was, I think in the 90s, during the height of the Great Friends popularity, there was a rom-com starring David Schwimmer and who was that blonde actor who went on to Gwyneth Paltrow? Gwyneth Paltrow's in it. And in the trailer, the gal asks the guy, why are you guys so obsessed with finding the one? And the guy goes into this soliloquy about how the one can make everything in your life make sense and make you a better person. And the woman responds, and of course I do a terrible paraphrase, you guys sure do give us more credit than we deserve. So our ruminations and our obsessions are false evidence appearing real. They are obsessions masquerading as intuitions. Let us continue by counting our next 4 rounds upon our left index finger. So remember, I'm not sure if you're as geeky as me. That might be a tall ask, but remember back in the 90s, the first Men in Black movie, there's the scene where the cadaver that appears to be that of a little man is on this quote-unquote slab at the pathologist's. And it turns out, the face opens up, and it turns out not to be a little old man, but a robot shaped like a little old man, and inside the faceplate is a little teeny tiny alien dying. So I've mentioned that to say this. Some biologists have cynically compared our DNA to a parasite that will gladly sacrifice the happiness and fulfillment of the individual for the propitiation of the species. So, yes, evolutionarily, obsessing over a lost love may be great to make sure that we find them and do the horizontal mambo with them and either become impregnated by them or impregnate them, and then move on to our next obsession. It's terrible for relationships. It's terrible for peace. It's terrible for fulfillment, but it's great for the gene pool. And so we have to realize that a portion of our neurological potentialities are not going to serve us well. They only serve our DNA. And one of the nice things about getting really good at the meditation exercises coming just down the pike in just a minute or two is that they can free us from the metaphoric spell cast by our ruminations. So we've just done passive contemplation, not active contemplation, but passive contemplation, gentle contemplation. And now we're going to bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and release. So the danger of relying upon active analysis is that it tends to overuse our prefrontal cortex. And the more it becomes fatigued, the more our amygdala lights up, the seat of aggression and anxiety. Nobody wants that. By using the technique I'm going to show you in just a few seconds, our anterior cingulate gyrus will light up, which is the seat of empathy and compassion and love, which is much more sustainable than fear and aggression. So now that we know there's a huge payoff, let's check this out. The seventh fold in the Buddha's eightfold path is mindfulness, but how do we access it sustainably? Fortunately, every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to effortlessly access our sympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, to notice all manner of things, sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. That can seem really overwhelming. Fortunately, every time we exhale, we are already wired to automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord. This bad boy is evolved to support both physical relaxation and mental release, the very exact same ones that the Buddha described as meditation, the eightfold of his eightfold path. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you already know. Forgive the mansplaining. Our brain is a lot like Urkel. It's clever, it means well, but it's a klutzy motherfucker. But fortunately, it takes direction well. And if we ask our brain to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we will find that our big old three-ring circus of a brain begins to actively cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. Similarly, during our exhalation, if we ask our brain to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, we find that this brain, this Urkel-like brain, begins cooperating with our parasympathetic nervous system. And thus, as we inhale and exhale, the perception and release of mindfulness and meditation can do their healing work. So let's play with this right now. And so, as promised, like the ponderous pendulum of grandfather clock, we swing from passive contemplations of wisdom and love to the passive practice of mindfulness and meditation. Now we're swinging back again. But first, allow me to invite you. Come together as a team. Let us Now let us bring the interpersonal into the path of love and the three marks of existence. We begin with dukkha. Let's chant. Each of us has experienced the stress of not getting our interpersonal needs met. How we want when we want for as long as we want, if at all. And now we condense this. How could feels be stressful? We are using the noun feels as a monosyllabic synonym of our experience of the interpersonal. Since we are not alone in our frustrations, we could also long that others' interpersonal needs also be met. So we were in the last set. We dealt with joyful wise, and now we're dealing with peaceful love, which together comprise respectively the fourth and fifth enlightenment factors. Together, observing the coming and going of interpersonal phenomena, help us see that ever-changing one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. How could feels always change? As we relax into more exhalation, whatever interpersonal phenomena we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less like our identity, as if it simply was not us. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Let us bring the physical into the path of love and the three marks of existence. We begin with dukkha. Please chant with me. Each of us has experienced the stress of not getting our physical needs met. How we want when we want for as long as we want, if at all. We continue now with metta. Since we are not alone in our frustrations, we could also long that others' physical needs also be met. We continue with anicca. Feeling the coming and going of physical phenomena. Help us to feel that ever-changing one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. Let us continue. Let us conclude with anatta. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever physical phenomena we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less like our identity, as if it simply did not define us. We cannot think our way to nirvana, but we can feel our way there. Therefore, instead of active contemplation, we practice passive contemplation, silently and mentally reciting these words and passively in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Now let us bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and release. Well, that sounds lovely. How do we make that happen? As we inhale, while we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, we can kick back and observe the antics of our mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. As we exhale, while we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, we can relax into this exact same mind's non-graspable nature. Welcome to the remainder of this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, please type your question in great detail in the chat window. L'chaim. It's funny. When I was a little kid, occasionally my grandparents would come over to play bridge with my parents. And my grandmother would give me a sip of her very special 7-Up. I couldn't figure out why her 7-Up tasted so much different than everybody else's 7-Up. It was probably the vodka. Let us bring the circumstantial into the path of love, as well as the 3 marks of reality. Let us begin with dukkha stress. Please chant. Each of us has experienced the stress of not getting our circumstantial needs met. How we want when we want for as long as we want, if at all. So we're going to take all these words and compress them down to just 6 syllables, which we're going to divide between our inhalation and our exhalation. So this is a rhetorical question. All we got to do is silently, mentally, and passively recite these words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. And we will find that we get better and better at letting go. We now perform the chant of Metta Love. Since we are not alone in our frustrations, we can also long that other circumstantial needs also be met. So we're not working magic, we're not trying to actively visualize or believe or emote, we're just playing with words. We turn our attention now to anicca impermanence. Observing the coming and going of circumstantial phenomena, help us to see that ever-changing one and all there is nothing permanent to grasp. And now let us perform the chant of anatta, not self. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever circumstantial phenomena we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel us like our identity, as if it simply did not define us. Now let us bring whatever we spontaneously notice into the path of awareness and release. As we inhale, while silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this, we can kick back and watch the antics of our mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. During our exhalation, while we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. Gotta love John Williams. Please chant with me. In all compassion may we long to free all beings from the toxic tyranny of ever. Hating, craving, and clinging, metaphorically known as the three mental poisons. In all pragmatism may all liberation of all others be fueled by our reliance on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students, described by the metaphor of the three wish-fulfilling jewels. One moment, if you please. So I'm going to hit cut. And paste. And cut again. Sounds like a slasher movie. And paste. So, having sat together for approximately 75 minutes, you might find it somewhat refreshing to join me for 7 or so repetitions of Tibetan-style Buddha bowing, which I find to be fun and efficient calisthenics. This is optional. Oh boy, here we go. Okay. May we free all through the three jewels. 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 May we free all throug 3 jewels. May we free all through thee. 3 jewels. May we free on through the 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 3 jewels. Whew. All right, let's rest the mind. Whoopsie. Here we go. Let us seal this morning's practice by percussively chanting loving wishes for universal enlightenment and well-being. May all minds yet impermanent be as enlightened as a Buddha's mind. May all relationships resounding yet impermanent be as loving as a Buddha's speech. May all bodies sensual yet impermanent be as beautifully healthy as a real or imagined Deva's form. May all circumstances appearing yet impermanent be as safe and abundant as a real or imagined Devi's land. May every meditation teacher truly understand the Buddha's teachings and practice master as well as teach them generously, lovingly, and wisely in the manner of centered spontaneity. May all these meditation teachers spontaneously receive generous patrons, enthusiastic students, as well as devoted apprentices. And may many Dharma centers likewise be successfully planted, nurtured, and supported. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. in approximately 10 1/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.